last session, we talked about the goal setting. We discussed the steps in goal setting. Now, we are going to discuss a very important part of this goal setting process. That is the traditional goal setting approach. Our discussion today is on the traditional goal setting approach. Let us have a quick look at this approach. This approach mirrors a totalitarian organizational structure. Traditional goal setting is an approach to goal setting in every organization where goals and decisions are established by the highest level of management and then disseminated down to the lower level of organizational hierarchy. In this method, top management defines the overall objectives. The top management gives the direction for the organization, and these objectives are then translated into specific sub-goals for each department or functional area. The goals are typically set in top-down manner, with each level of management responsible for achieving the goals established by the level above. There are some key features of the traditional goal setting. Let us now have a quick look at the key features of the traditional goal setting, which consists of a few important aspects. These important aspects consist of top-down approach, first of all. As we know that the goals are set by senior management and flow down the organizational hierarchy. Another feature of the traditional goal setting is the specific and measurable. We have been discussing this part also in our previous discussions, that the goals are often specific and measurable, which provide clear target for each department and individual, or you can say for each department or for each individual. Another feature of the traditional goal setting consists of performance measurement. Here, we should understand one thing very clearly, that the goals serve as benchmark for evaluating performance. Goals serve as benchmark for evaluating performance, and success of every organization is measured against the achievement of these predetermined objectives. This is also one of the important features of traditional goal setting approach. The traditional goal setting approach needs to be structured and formalized. The process is structured and formal, with specific targets communicated to each level of management in the organization. Not only this, we have to look at the other side of the picture also. That is, there are some disadvantages of the traditional goal setting approach. We will have a quick look at the traditional goal setting approach from critics' point of view. People say that it's a complex sub-goal division. They say that breaking down a goal into sub-goals for each department and further compartmentalizing objectives can be complex and challenging process. This is one of the disadvantages of the traditional goal setting approach. They also say that the decisions made by top management in this approach often lack clarity and are susceptible to individual biases and interpretation. Individuals may have their own biases, their own perceptions, their own interpretations. So we cannot think that all is going to be well under the traditional goal setting approach. Some people are averse to the traditional goal setting approach, or it is considered as a disadvantage of the traditional goal setting approach because of the executive unawareness. We know that the managers at the executive level may be unaware of the situations at their subordinate level. This lack of awareness can result in decisions that are disconnected from the actual conditions. They are disconnected from the actual conditions within the organization, contributing to potential challenges to gain goals, to achieve the goals, or in goal attainment. One more disadvantage you can see here is the loss of clarity through hierarchical flow. The downward flow of goals, coupled with constant modifications at various managerial level, can result into loss of clarity. This is also one of the disadvantages of the traditional goal setting approach. After having discussed the disadvantages of the traditional goal setting approach, now we are going to have a look at a very, very important issue, a very, very important aspects of management, and it is the management by objectives, popularly called as MBO. Let me tell you one thing here, that in the year 1954, you might have heard the name Peter Drucker. He came out with a lot of transformation in the field of management. He gave the concept of planning. He said that the accomplishment of objectives through participation of all concerned persons is required. He said that the participative and democratic style of management is required in business organizations. This is what is the management by objectives. To be more clear about it, we should see that the MBO is an organization's management approach. We can call it as the approach of organization that involves a collaborative process of defining goals and objectives between managers and their subordinates. Just to understand the basic concept of MBO, we need to understand this fact that it is nothing. It's just an organizational management approach that involves the collaborative process of defining goals and objectives between the managers and their subordinates, so that there is no gap. It is to be minimized. If the gap is there, that is to be minimized. That is to be taken into consideration. In the MBO approach, the superior and the subordinate manager jointly identify the common goals and they define departments' major areas of responsibility in achieving the goals. We know that it is a kind of strategic management model. This model aims to improve the performance of an organization by clearly defining objectives that are argued by both, that is the management and the employees. You can say that it is a process where the goals of organizations are defined and conveyed by the management to the members of organizations with the intention of achieving each objective. The name itself is management by objectives, MBO. I hope you get the clear-cut idea about the meaning of the management by objective. George Odion has given a very specific definition of the management by objectives. What he says? He says in very summarized words, MBO is a process whereby superior and subordinate managers of an organization jointly define its common goals, define each individual's major areas of responsibility in terms of results expected of him, and use these measures as guides for operating the units and assessing the contribution of each of its members. This is by George Odion. If you look at the elements of management by objectives, that is the MBO, we find that MBO has several basic elements. Let us see what these basic elements are. First of all, there is a possibility of mutual decision making. Mutual decision making is possible to a very large extent because of MBO approach. MBO involves results oriented processes. MBO involves emphasizing that the end justifies the means, and the focus is on achieving objectives, and less emphasis is placed on the specific approach which is taken to solve the problems. This is about the mutual decision making part, which is considered as one of the elements of the management by objectives. Followed by this is the specificity of goals. Employees at all job levels contribute to defining precise goals. They try to define the precise goals through the mutual setting of objectives and sub goals based on their respective expertise. We require collective decision making because the collective decision making ensures well known and predetermined objectives with accurate time estimation required for completion. MBO operates within a predefined and non-negotiable time framework. That is why we call it as predefined time period as one of the most important elements of MBO. Then comes the performance feedback. The collaborating setting of responsibilities by both supervisors and subordinates enables the use of objectives as comparative standards for evaluating subordinates' performance. So, one of the elements of the MBO is the performance feedback. In management field, it is always the feedback that plays a big role to make things worthwhile, to make things to the point, important. Because without this, the process will remain incomplete. Then, before we go to the concluding point, there are a few things which need to be discussed here. I think, dear students, that I must tell you the advantages and disadvantages of MBO so that you could understand that whether the MBO is an advantageous philosophy or disadvantageous. We will make the judgment afterwards. If we look at the advantages of the MBO, we find that it develops result-oriented philosophy. There is no doubt about it. What we look forward from business? We look forward from business is that development of the result-oriented philosophy that is done by the MBO. We require formulation of the dearer goals. Why? Because we want to be successful. We want success at all costs. We can also say that the companies where they are following the process of MBO, they facilitate objective appraisal. It's not something which is invisible. Every organization needs to have objective appraisal of its employees. MBO does this job in a very systematic way, without any kind of complication, without any kind of distortion. It can be done easily. When employees work in the organization, they are human beings. The employers need to take care of their morale. The philosophy of MBO raises the employees' morale, and they feel more motivated, more contented towards the work. And of course, it will facilitate the effective planning in organizations. I won't say a single word about effective planning, as discussed many times. The MBO acts as a motivational force in organizations. Motivation is required in every organization to make things happen successfully, significantly, in harmonious way. Healthy and harmonious relations between the employees and employer pave the way for economic growth and social change. It paves the way for the development of the organization. The planning will make things possible because it acts as a motivational force. And also, the MBO facilitates effective control. Control is required in every business. Control is just like the brake in a motor car, where you have to use it wherever you want to stop. If you want to stop, you have to press the brake. MBO facilitates effective control of the organization. Direction is set. You have to take position, take the control of the situation. Is it possible through MBOs? MBOs also facilitate personal leadership. If the organizations are adopting the policy of management by objectives, they will be having a strong position to develop personal leadership. And also, finally, the basis for the organizational change lies in management by objectives. That is the new philosophy of business world. So, dear students, you have seen that how important management is when it is done by objectives. But as we all know, that it is very important to see the other side of the picture also, because there are critics everywhere, so they are in the field of the management also. The critics of the MBO philosophy, they put forward their reasons. Let us see what reasons are put forward by the critics of the process of MBO. The people who are not supporting the management by objective, they say at the very outset that it is a time-consuming process. Because it is failure to teach MBO philosophy to the employees. They believe that MBO is a reward punishment approach. The people who are averse to the idea of management by objective, they say that it increases the paperwork also. And a number of organizational problems come up in the organization. Some people say that the MBO develops the conflicting objectives in the organization. I fail to understand why people are averse to the idea of management by objective when we have seen that it is a kind of idea which changes the entire system of the organization in such a way that we get a lot of benefits out of it. And also, there is one or more opposition of the problems of the coordination. There is a problem of coordination as one of the disadvantages of the MBO. It lacks the durability also, and also problems related to the goal setting come up into picture. The trained managers are generally not available for the purpose of management by objectives philosophy to be implemented in a systematic way. It's also pressure oriented. There is lack of appreciation and there is a lack of inflexibility in the approach by objectives. In this way, we find that MBO, that is management by objectives, is a policy, is a process, is an approach of management wherein the employers make all possible efforts to make it more effective. We can look at this part of the discussion that says how to make MBO effective. If you want to make MBO effective, I will quickly tell you in a few words that we need support from all. We need acceptance of MBO program by managers. We need the training of the managers. There must be purpose of the program. And we require the organizational commitment from all. There must be allocation of adequate time and resources for the purpose of management by objectives. And also, there must be the provision of uninterrupted information feedback. Of course, politics, participation, these things are there. Politics is to be kept away. Because if you want to make management by objective effective, we need to take into consideration this part more systematically. And as mentioned in almost all discussion, that it requires the participation. We started from the support from all to the participation of all. Then only we will be able to manage the affairs of organization in a more efficient and systematic way. You can see that management by objective, where the superiors and subordinate managers of organization jointly define their common goals. They define each individual's major area of responsibility in terms of results expected of him and use these measures as guides for operating the unit and assessing the contribution of each of its members. So, with this, now we conclude the discussion about the management by objectives.